Hi, everybody. It's Mike from Here, the Watchman, and we're back today. We've had a few days off here. We're actually in our undisclosed location in the mountains of Idaho getting a fair amount of snow today. So it's a little chilly up here, but we're going to push on. Today, we have with us Ross Powell from Survival 401k and his lovely wife, Jill, who has a company called Remnant K9 360. And we have a lot to talk about today. You know, there's a lot of discussion, Ross and Jill, about what's going to happen this weekend. Here we go again, right? We got another weekend of maybe something will happen. Antifa's out there. Apparently, they ran an ad in a newspaper in New York. It's just kind of scary stuff. Now, both of you have different niches. First of all, thanks for coming on the show today.
Great. Thanks for having us.
Jill, let's start with you this morning. Let's talk a little bit about Remnant K9 360. Why, in your opinion, are dogs a valuable and integral part of being prepared?
Well, Mike, that's a great question. And in my opinion, I believe that canines are a integral and valuable part of a preparedness lifestyle. One, because pets and dogs are already an integral part of our lives in our modern day society. A large majority of us already have household pets and dogs. But why not take an intentional step to integrate them and train them to be a part of that team if you need to employ them in times of need. So as a preparedness minded person, we learn new skills. We may learn how to sew. We may learn how to can. We may learn how to garden. We also train our families to do specific skills such as first aid or maybe alternative ways of communicating with one another. So why not intentionally make our canine a part of this process? With all the stuff going on in the world, you know, the terrorist attack earlier this week in New York with the gentleman, you know, running through that crowd, the things that are on the news or people are heightened about this weekend. You know, normal for us today may not be normal in the near future. And so when some of those normal things that we have access to, like law enforcement and those kind of things, how can we come together not only as a family, but also use our pet to help in those types of situations? So, for example, if I have a dog that's really barky, that likes to bark all the time, and I haven't trained them on a quiet command, and I'm trying to conceal my position in my home because for whatever reason, my home is being compromised in one of these maybe, you know, grid down situations or heightened situations, then that dog has just become a liability for my family instead of an asset because they just gave our position away. You know, maybe those intruders or those people that meant to do us harm would have passed over our house, but then they hear a dog bark and then they hear maybe somebody telling that dog to be quiet. So if you're waiting to train your dog when those situations are happening, you're too late. And I don't really think that's fair to either your pet or yourself. So if you had trained them on a quiet command and able to conceal your position, then you have just not only protected yourself, but your loved ones, as well as your household pet. And also pets, you know, they offer us comfort in everyday situations, but in these heightened situations as well, they again provide that comfort in those high stress situations. But it's just really important, I feel, to have some type of training with your canine so that in those high stress situations, you're prepared, and not only as a family, but you've prepared your dog as well, and you can employ them to do certain things. And at Remnant K9 360, we specifically train in scent detection and patrol, but we also offer that basic obedience package and talk about some of those things like the quiet command and other things that can be helpful in these high stress situations.
Well, Jill, you bring up an interesting point. If we're cut off, what do you do in terms of long-term food storage for your pets? I mean, what are your thoughts on that? What are your recommendations?
Right. That's a great question, Mike. And one that, to be quite honest, our family really hadn't addressed prior to us getting into all of the training with the dog. We had a lot of long-term storable food for ourselves. But then kind of the light bulb went on and was like, hey, we're asking our dogs to do work for us. They're an integral part of this family. We consider them family members. What have we done for them? And so I really started doing some research, and I found a great article on AmericanPreppersNetwork.com. It was written in 2013 by Stephanie Dale, and she does a great job recommending long-term storage for dog food. And I can just highlight a few of those. She does recommend that you store the dry kibble, if you buy dry dog food, in the bag itself, because the moment you open the bag, the oxidation starts, and that starts that process of that dog food going bad. So she really recommends you keep it in the original package. If you need extra protection, then place that whole bag into a metal bin or a plastic container for that storage. So she goes into more detail on how to do that. She also recommends canned pet food. That has a shelf life of at least 2 to 5 years. Some people say it even holds nutritional value up to 10 years. So that's a fairly inexpensive way to store food for your pet. And also it doesn't take up quite as much room as, your dry kibble in those big bags. And then she goes into how to can your own pet food and doing freeze-dried pet food as well. So it's really comprehensive. It's one of the best articles I've found out there in terms of storing food for your pet, which it's important. They are part of the family, and as a responsible pet owner and people that are of this mindset of being prepared, I really need to take time to think that through.
Well, now, let's take a look at if the grid goes down. We're not going to be able to take our pets in for veterinary care. What do we do then? What are some alternatives?
Right. Just this past week, one of the ladies that I train with out at a local facility, I take the dogs out and train with them. She's an alternative medicine veterinarian. So she does acupuncture and chiropractic on dogs as well as horses, which I think is quite intriguing. But she recommended this book. I'm going to hold it up here in front of you. Can you see it all right? Dr. Pitcairn's Natural Health for Dogs and Cats. This is a great resource. Again, this is something that we haven't even begun, but I'm going to start doing some research in this book on what are some natural remedies for common ailments for dogs, such as diarrhea and vomiting, flea treatment. Well, what are you going to do about fleas when the grid's down and you can't, you don't have access to those regular treatments that you would have, or you don't have access to your vet to go and ask them what to do. It's very, very comprehensive. It's all natural. You can buy everything online. Usually their remedies are, little bottles of natural herbs and things like that. So again, you can store them with the dog food and your other preparations, and just again, kind of build that stock of things that you might need for your pet in these times of this long, term or long periods of not having access.
Interesting. So, Jill, how do people, before we've had the better half of this equation on, we're going to go to the other half here in a minute. But before we leave you and go to Ross, how can people get a hold of you? How can they get connected with you and get to talking about how to prepare?
Where you can find us on the internet. We're online at Remnant K9 360. Make sure you spell out the word canine. So CANINE. So remnantk9360.com. That's our website. You can also find us on Facebook and YouTube. Again, Remnant K9 360. You can email me at jill@remnantk9360. Or you can call me 210-526-0992. So there's lots of ways to get a hold of us. We have great trainers on staff that are willing to help with any type of training questions that you have. If we don't have an answer, we're pretty willing to go out there and, try to figure out how we can best help you, because it's really, to me, this is really about getting the word out on how to prepare your family and your canine and work together as a team and make that team as strong as they can be, so that your canine turns into an asset when things, like our tagline says, when everything changes, who can you trust? And to me, one of the most loyal creatures on the earth, or the loyalist creature on the earth, is a dog. So why not make them an asset and train them and help them to be prepared as well.
Well, Jill, thank you for joining us today. And we're going to move over to Ross now. Ross, you've been in the financial business for quite a while now. What's going on in Washington, D.C.? We hear all this rumor of what's going to happen to the 401k. Where are we going with all this? And what is this new tax plan actually have to do with a 401k?
Well, the tax talking points came out just the other day, and I reviewed them deeply. And I was concerned with all of the bantering about whether 401ks and IRAs and stuff were going to go away, or they were going to reduce them down to a pittance of, say, $2,500, which would really be killing the middle class. And that, fortunately, with the new talking points coming out of the actual details of the plan, they didn't touch it. There's trillions of dollars in 401ks, and there's a lot of people in Washington and as in New York and others that are making a lot of money on 401ks and IRAs. And it's a great way for the middle class to avoid taxes or to reduce their tax burdens. So that deduction went away. There was a lot of pressure from the financial people that give a lot of money to the politicians, as you can well imagine. And they all go from the government to these houses, and they make a lot of money, and they go on their merry way. And then they write a book and they make even more money, right? So that just kind of, the new tax on the 401k is going to be fully operational, and that's not going to go anywhere anytime soon. Now, that's not to say that regulations can't come down the pike later and say, well, you know what, because the market is so volatile, and again, it's going towards 24,000, and people are predicting it could go to 30. So it's like, it's the P&E ratios, and you were in Wall Street, you were a trader, you know what all that kind of stuff is. And the P&E ratios of 30 to 1, 50 to 1 are just ludicrous. And so it's just not sustaining. And we're seeing earnings from certain companies, but just like 4 tech companies are driving this, this boom. So if the average person may or may not be making the 25%, but it's all based on cheap money from the Fed as they start raising rates, but they're not going to do that because they know that'll pop the bubble. So the tax plan is actually pretty good. It lowers the corporate tax rate to 20%. It helps small businesses. It helps startups. There's a lot of good things in it. Now, it didn't get rid of the individual mandate in Obamacare, and there's some things it hasn't done. It cut off part of the mortgage deduction after $500,000 on a house, which in many blue states, that's going to kill them. It did keep the tax, the local tax, property tax stuff in there that they were going to kill, but they capped it at $10,000. So that's again going to kill the people in blue states that have high property taxes. But at least they're going to get some of it to, taxing on tax. It'll be, after 10,000, you're stuck. But overall, the package is pretty good. Now, with all the politics in Washington, will anything get done? You have all the stuff with Mueller and Manafort, and you have a special prosecutor that's running amok and looking under every rock, and it's a witch hunt. And they haven't found anything having to do with Trump and collusion with the Russians. And you got all kinds of things going on with Hillary and Uranium One and the DNC, and even Elizabeth Warren saying that Hillary rigged the primaries against Bernie. So there's a lot of dirt out there, but nobody's really scraping it. So that, coupled with this new distraction of Antifa or Antifa starting tomorrow, you know, we don't know where that's going to go. And at the same time, they have an EMP or a grid down drill going on nationwide. They have ham operators involved. So there's so many things that are pulling together at the same time to make you think, not coincidental. So, and again, the November 4th, in the month of November is when the Bolsheviks took over Russia in 1917. So they're picking days that are historically, you know, significant. And we know what happened during that revolution and how many people died over the course of 50 years. So tomorrow is not insignificant, or it could be the next day, or how ongoing they want to do it every day, day and night. So could we have a conflagration in this country? Potentially. And they're talking about wearing MAGA hats and MAGA t-shirts and trying to dress themselves up as Trump supporters and stirring things up. So there's going to be provocateurs and everything else going on tomorrow. So my recommendation to your audience, who's hopefully they're listening between now and then, would be, number one, have a certain amount of cash on you, because if the credit card machine stop working, things like that, you need to make sure that you have cash that you can buy things. Make sure you have some precious metals in your possession. Stock up your food, have storable water, have pet food, right? Make sure that your dog's not going to starve, or your cat's not going to starve, or your parakeet, whatever the case may be. Just make sure that you're able to ride out the storm for at least 3 to 5 days. Will it go that far? Nothing, maybe not. It could be nothing but just a tempest in a teapot, but it could be something really significant. And if the grid goes down, as many times these drills that they do, sometimes coincidentally, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, the actual event happens. So you have to be prepared for something like that. Being in remote Utah, you know, you're pretty safe. But those of us in San Antonio, there's supposed to be a planned march in Austin, which is 90 miles north of us. And you have one in Dallas, which is 200 miles, probably Houston. So I don't know that San Antonio is going to be involved, but I'm not taking any chances. I'm going to be strapped all weekend. Like, I have a concealed weapons permit, so I normally don't carry. But this weekend I'll be strapped everywhere I go, unless I'm on school property and get me arrested, because being in the Huska won't really help matters very much. So, but I'm going to be, you know, and I may have an AR in my car too, just in case things get really dicey. So I'm just going to in a bug out bag and all those kind of things. So you just have to be prepared for the worst. If worst case scenario, if nothing happens, best case, then you just unload your car and go back to your normal life. But worst case, you're ready to rock and roll. So you just need to be prepared, and the economy could teeter. That's a good chance they could, you know, pop the bubble that's in the stock market. It may make Bitcoin go even higher, and may pop that bubble too. You just don't.
I'm sorry, but something that you reminded me of is just being your situational awareness. You know, you're not going to stop living this weekend, but that's one thing that our scent detection trainer really brought home for us. And I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No, that's good. That's actually good.
But situational awareness, you know, be aware of your surroundings this weekend and going forward. You know, if something unusual, don't just blow it off, you know, or take a little bit more time to kind of figure that out, and just kind of have that heightened sense of awareness. Because I think as Americans, we just go along in our day and we don't think about much of anything. You know, we're just doing our thing. But anyway, sorry.
Well, no, that's actually great, because that's one thing I didn't mention is, again, look over your shoulder. If you see something, say something, or say something to get the hell out of there. I mean, at the end of the day, don't go into big crowds. Don't, if you see people marching, just get away from it. You want to be where everybody else is not. So again, you need to just keep a low profile, get your stuff done, get home. And if it's cold outside, stay home, build a fire at home, and just make soup or something. Do something that you're not in the middle of everywhere, right? So just again, keep your eyes wide open, because you have to make sure that anything can happen. I mean, who thought that somebody would drive a truck down the street in New York? And one of my clients, actually, one of her best friend's husbands were killed in that. And so it just comes so close that you would think a population of 5 million in New York City, 3 million, and that one of those people would be somebody that would be attached to us at some level. So it's just amazing how tightly we're all connected. And again, you just have to be very aware that if you're being threatened, you need to draw on fire. I mean, you have to make sure that you protect you and yours.
No, that's great advice for us.
One thing that we talk about with Canine is the presence of a dog can sometimes diffuse a situation, so you don't actually have to shoot somebody. Because many people, shooting a person is not fun. You don't want to do that if you don't have to.
That's like your last resort.
That's your last resort. But if you have a canine with you, many times that can diffuse a situation or make them you're saying barking, but if the dog is barking and it's very aggressive, that particular person may move along down the line, so they really don't want to mess with them, right?
Right.
That's very good advice. I mean, you know, it's up here in the mountains and just like anywhere. I mean, when that dog's barking like crazy, you don't want to go. I mean, I might say to the mailman that, oh, don't worry about it. My dog won't bite you, won't bite. Well, he won't bite me, but he might bite them. So, it's a good,
that's not my dog. Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's just it's a good tool to have around. Now, Ross, before we let you go here, the overall economy, there are reports out again this morning that unemployment is an all-time low, but yet we still have this crazy stock market. We still have Bitcoin, which, we could do a whole half hour on Bitcoin and what drives that. But, it wouldn't take too much to derail this whole economy, would it?
Well, no, not at all. I mean, one blast over North Korea and the market goes in the tank. This Antifa thing goes unruly and commerce stops, the market drops. Right. So, yeah, and the thing that you're not seeing in those unemployment numbers, there's still like 93 million people not in the workforce. Right. So that's a lot of people not working. And it's not the 70-year-olds and it's stuff. Those people that are able-bodied to be able to work. And you listen to NPR, they tell you it's just old people. That's not the case at all. That's the national propaganda radio, NPR. So don't listen to what they're telling, because that's the establishment line. There's a lot of people that just don't want to work, or they can't find the job that they want. Or they said the big number jump in jobs was bartenders and waiters. Now, who's going to make a living at that? I mean, if you live in a high-end restaurant, you could probably make a pretty decent living. But if you're schlepping at a local Applebee's, not so much. So those numbers, again, figures don't lie, but liars do figure. And you have to make sure that you just read below the sophistry that they put on the front page, because it's obvious that they're just weaving a story that may not be there. And they have lots of clients that are hurting. They show the economy growing and the market's going through the roof, but they're having a hard time making ends meet. They can't afford all of their bills. They're having to work 2 or 3 jobs. So that story that everything is great and making America great again. Yeah, I know we're trying to, but there's a lot of people trying to make us into a socialist communist country. So there's a huge, just below the surface, we are at a de facto state of civil war in a cultural standpoint. The shooting hasn't started, but it may start tomorrow or the next day or a week from now. But there is a very strong undercurrent of trying to, I would call it sedition, trying to bring this country down and take Trump out, because it's thwarting the globalist attempt for one world government.
Wow. Interesting stuff, Russ. Interesting stuff. Now, how do people get a hold of you?
Not by the throat, preferably. So, they can reach me at our contact number 844 650-5733. That's our 800 number, toll free. You can call my desk directly, 210-526-0993. But you also can just go to our website and click on the contact us page, or you can email me directly at ross.powell@survival401k.com. And be glad to hear your story and see how we can help you. Many people are trying to get their money out of the matrix. They're seeing these top numbers in Wall Street, and they want to take their profits and get out. Give me a call. I can help you roll over your retirement funds and show you how to use it into hard type assets like land or metals or other types of investment instruments that can still grow your money, but not be at risk of geopolitical whims of war.
Well, again, both of you, Jill, Ross, thank you so much for joining us today here on the Watchmen's Report. We just love you guys at Hear the Watchmen. We're looking forward to seeing you in Dallas, hopefully this March 22nd through the 25th at the Hilton DFW Lakes Executive Conference Center and Hotel. We've got an amazing lineup put together. Go to hearthewatchman.com. Visit our store there. You can get the DVDs from the past conferences. We just want to bless you with more of what Hear the Watchman does. So again, Jill, Ross, thank you so much.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having us. Take care now.
Take care.
Now, remember, as I always say, folks, until the next time on the Watchman's Report, you can do anything with Jesus in your heart, except nothing at all. Get out there, get busy, do something for Jesus, pay attention to people like Ross and Jill, and your life will continue on in a blessed manner. God bless each and every one of you. See you again soon.